characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance, no age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear, they transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times by means of Prajnaparamita awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as truth, since there is no deception. Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way: Te ata om gate gate paragate parasangate bodhisoha. Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajnaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra, the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Geshe Lama Te ata om gate gate paragate parasangate bodhisoha. Bapa gonjo zonji gai denbe doji she oba doji me ba doji she wa doji jagi baji me denbe ju donji she dengo ye so. Geri endon ja je jo je wa da. Me do no be yen dan re wa da. Lomba runjim muzu zunjoji jashi de jane na de le yo. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, or continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy the spirit realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples, as we are ready, shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. ye zo lama nama ye lan ye yo la ye ze yo zen di ye ra za me lo ye ze ma la za ye yo yi ya ba a lo zo. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Idam Guru Radha Yami. Jodan Zoji Jonam La Janju Badu Dani Yazu Jindagi Chunye Jibe Zonam Jola Benji Zanye Ruvayo Jodan Zoji Jonam La Janju Badu Dani Yazu Jindagi Chunye Jibe Zonam Rola Benji Zanye Ruvayo Jodan Zoji Jonam La Janju Badu Dani Yazu Jindagi Chunye Jibe Zonam Rola Benji Zanye Ruvayo.
What is the issue about them? The issue about and what did that? You did good to them a lot is all about to my Kovachi with the Vashi wrote again. She did with them was mother. She did Taulma. You did Jujuma to the Chungu Lang, Dinglang, Chibi Lang from the waters. That's when young Jebala what the Shegu or the Shebala, the Shigangel Tango Yiza, she had the things at it. Chetan the issue Shebala, issue Shigangel Tango, Hindu Tangachiva Marva, Motor, water double, motor laughing Gangel Tango, what the double of his.
So once again, we're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's text called The Source of All My Good. And in it, the contents contain the meaning of the pathways for beings of three capacity, the pathways for beings of small capacity, the pathways for beings of medium capacity, and the pathways for beings of great capacity. So this is the information that is contained in this text, the meaning of those pathways. So the first stanza begins by stating this: the source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to him or her in the proper way is the very root of the path, and grant me then to serve and follow him with all my strength and reverence. So here, this first stanza is referring to the necessity of reliance upon a spiritual teacher. So if one wishes to learn any subject, it's necessary to have a teacher. So therefore, the text begins with that fact. If one wishes to understand those pathways for beings of three capacities, it's necessary to have a teacher to explain the meanings of those pathways. And just like if you would wanted to learn about Christianity or you wanted to learn about Hinduism, it would be necessary to find someone who could teach you about those subjects. And even other things like driving a car, you need a teacher to show you how to drive a car. So in order to learn anything new, any subject, it's necessary to have a teacher in order to really truly understand it well. And therefore Lama Tsongkhapa begins with reliance upon the spiritual friend, or the reliance upon the teacher. Decent.
Sangazu Bugu Chishul, the Pamaki Kalasa, the Pamala Namadu, Bugu was the Labal culture in the Sagro, the Pamakan the Mazan, this was the love, what the double service.
So it's like a small child who relies upon his or her parents. If they're just left alone, their hands will pick up anything, and they'll the lapa. Okay, so when a child will pick anything up with his or her hand and just eat it and won't know any better, and so for that reason, it's necessary to have the parents as an intervention to say, okay, you can eat this, but you can't eat that, in order to instruct the child on how and what to eat. Similar to this, no? So if one wishes to engage in the stages of the path for beings of small capacity or medium capacity or great capacity, it's necessary to have a basis from which one can actually practice these things. So the next stanza deals with the importance of the human basis that we currently possess with its 8 leisures and 10 opportunities. So it reads as follows: Bless me first to realize that the excellent life of leisure I've found just this once is ever so hard to find and ever so valuable. Grant me then to wish and never stop to wish that I could take its essence night and day. So here again, this is referring to this precious human basis that we possess that has the 8 leisures and 10 opportunities. So we have this basis with the 8 leisures and 10 opportunities. And in this basis, we have the human mind. And the human mind is very intelligent and is able to understand these pathways of 3 capacities. So it's for this reason that we state that it is so important. So the next stanza: My body and the life in it are fleeting as the bubbles in the sea froth of a wave. Bless me first thus to recall the death that will destroy me soon, and help me find sure knowledge that after I have died, the things I've done, the white or black, and what those deeds will bring to me follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow. Grant me then to ever be careful to stop the slightest wrong of the many wrongs we do, and try to carry out each and every good of the many that we may. So here, these 8 lines are referring to the pathways shared in common with beings of small capacity. So this is where we enter into that section, that is getting into the pathways shared in common with beings of small capacity. So this pathway for beings of small capacity is an actual pathway that leads to the higher realms of cyclic existence. So here, this is what one's path at that capacity leads to. So one could be reborn in the realms of the gods and of the humans, in the higher realms of cyclic existence.
아니 제즈나 가르를 저선 전에 죄제기나 아니 할 저거를 멀지가 오시에 말ပဲ어때 저 중국주 남bắc 시야든 잡도스
The Hua Jigger Midget. Got it.
아니
이슈
가르다 제즈를 저선 말ပဲ
Then
제즈 저선 전에 아니 가르여서 할 저거를 어때서도 말ပဲ
Okay.
잡도
So we see this idea of a pathway which leads to the higher realms of cyclic existence, in this case the gods and humans, very common in other religious traditions as well. So in the Christian tradition and the Hindu tradition, we find these ideas as well of this higher realm that one will be able to be in. So in the Christian tradition, we have this idea that if one goes for refuge to Jesus Christ, then he or she will be born into heaven or a heavenly place. So it's very similar to this idea in the Buddhist tradition, where we have a higher realm rebirth.
다 남바 건조선을 저선 저거는 뭐기 좀 수치 가도저도 손마도나 네발 자당 제바이나 어들 하다 말 제그레스 어디셔도 어떤 나지 힌두 쪽에 어디 시발 저선네 던잡은잡을 이제로 말বে
So as Buddhists, if we engage in these the practices such as going for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, engaging in ethics which abandons the 10 non-virtuous activities, and then if we actually engage in non-virtuous activities, acknowledging our downfalls. So in the Buddhist tradition, it's stated that if one does these things, it will be able to be born into the higher realms of cyclic existence. In the Hindu tradition, we find the idea of going for refuge to Shiva and in order to have a similar results.
어따 가데 가서 뢰질레 나버서 나기 나버제 이제 나버서 디버 먹어 주도거데 nen주랑레스 디버 먹어 주사바 있는 내송 찍으레스 먹어 좀 추진 소바 있나 어떤 줄지네 가서 주도 소소마도 디버 자나제나 던줄 찍 던줄랑레스 어때 저 중요랑 어떻게 되서봐
So the non-virtuous activities are what lead a being to the lower realms of cyclic existence. So we find the principal instructions on the 10 paths of action, or the 10 non-virtuous actions. So we find there are 3 non-virtues of the body, 4 non-virtues of the speech, and 3 non-virtues of the mind. And by engaging in non-virtuous behavior, one has the result of lower realm rebirth. By abandoning these non-virtuous activities, by abandoning non-virtuous behavior, by engaging in ethics which abandons the 10 non-virtuous activities, one is able to then be born into the higher realms of cyclic existence. So this is what is the pith, or the main point of the pathways shared in common with beings of small capacity.
다 라리 제보고 어떤 맛집이 중요 라드마 시벌 사지 송지도와 삼바샤 왕고도 삼바도 집세 들러로도 세와스 다 삼바샤 왕고도 집이 중요 삼바들과 삼바 말바 삼바샤 왕고도 집세 들러로도 세와 사지 송지 아네 삼바샤 왕고도 지된 심마도 줄로 제바다 지된 심마디 터된 바스 이제 다지데 심마디 터데마 정도도 레레지 말베 정도도 레레지 정도 사비지 다가서 레레 카톨레드 말베 레레 야 레레 카톨레드 여로와 what 레레 카톨레드 여레다 레레들라 아네 what 레레시 상바다 시라도 상바 산에 조도 샤투스 사지 송도 레레시 상바 시라도 상바 산에 조도 샤투 송로다 달 레레시 상바 차지 다들이가서 비지 시라도 상바 가도는 거나.
So in the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, if we look at the outline, when we look at the major heading, which is the pathways shared in common with beings of small capacity, training the mind in the stage of the path shared in common with beings of small capacity, I think is the actual heading. We find there are three subcategories. The actual training of thought of a person of small capacity, the measure of the attitude of a person of small capacity, and then dispelling any misconceptions related to a person of small capacity. And then that first topic, which is the actual training of thought of a person of small capacity, has two topics underneath it. First, developing a state of mind that strives diligently for the sake of future lives, and the second category of relying on a means or a method of achieving happiness in one's next life. So that in that section, relying on a method or a means of achieving happiness in one's next life, there are two categories below that, and that is refuge, and then karma and its results. So we've already gone through the Buddhist refuge. So again, this is according to the outline of Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. So we've already gone through the Buddhist refuge. So now we're currently dealing with the karma section. And the karma section has three categories. First, the karma explained in the generalities, or the general way of explaining karma. And then a second category of a detailed way of looking at karma, or the particulars of karma. And then a third category of, once one has looked at the generals and particulars, how one abandons non-virtue and engages in virtue. So we have these three categories. We've gone through the first category, the general explanation. So now we're dealing with the particulars, or the details. So we're going to go over that section now. So I'll find the, now we need these.
Tal Geshe Lharampa Sheta Samba nga zuwa de Lamrim Pasha yoba ina de duwa wi jena shugu jadang jechu jajin du jadang jechu jajin tadal tini badal duwa niba Sheta Samba nes jadang jechu jaji 188 ya what the wool tini badal duwa niba Sheta Samba nes what
Bless him. Okay, so we are on 188 in the Tibetan, and we are on page English.
I think it could be 242, Jeff.
Geshe Lharampa. Okay, so yes, 242 is where we're going to begin. Yes, 242.
What didn't matter, because you were a Sheda to Samba Tati, Marsheda Samba Tele, Lenisha Samba Sheda to Samba, Telta Contenterendo, Magujubunki, Chang, Ten Zambishi, Niemage, Magujubun Songina, Ten Zamba Yungeres, Niemages, Tad Nacha Drubi, Ten Chinese House, Nacha Drubi, Tad Naching Asu, Lantala, Nitujilan. Rajaglan, Teba Chimbi Langsung Marba, Teba Chimbi Langsung, Teba Chimbi Lang Drubi, then Chinese Sawaji, Ne Nebala, or the Niasuna, and the Saj Nebacha Yoris, Saji Chiva Yoris, and the Magujumu Chujusuna, ten Zambi, the Niagara, Nacha Drubi, ten Chinese Sawas Nia Kalikabres, Nacha Drubi, ten Chinese, and not. Ten Chinese Sawashi to Nasa. Nacha Drubi, ten Chinese Sawachi to Ina, and Nebachers, and Tebachimi Lantea, Unga, Tinga, the Parangat, Parasanga, the Medesua, Tebachimi Solan, Julan, Tolan Kulan to Sinas Lagina, and what the ten Chinese Sawati Ina, 안도송가 레하부 줄제 모르스 갈리시라 요마르스 레하부 정우르스 텐산이 성화된 말에
So, reflecting on karma and its effects in detail, 242, and then now 243. It is certainly the case that you acquire a good body and mind through giving up the 10 non-virtuous actions. So here the statement is that the fact is that if one engages in the ethics which abandons the 10 non-virtuous activities, one will have, as a result, a very beautiful body, a good body, and a very able mind, or a good mind. But it says, nonetheless, if you were to bring about a body and mind that are fully qualified, this would accelerate your cultivation of the path as nothing else would. Therefore, seek such a life. So here, this is speaking of bringing about the mind that engages in the pathway of the great vehicle. If we look at all of the various vehicles, we'll find that there are three. We have the hearer's vehicle, which the Shravakas. We have the solitary realizer's vehicle, the Prachika Buddhas, and then we have the Bodhisattva vehicle, which is the great vehicle. So here, this is speaking of if one engages in the great vehicle pathways, this would accelerate the path as nothing else would. So yes, the abandonment of the 10 non-virtuous activities will allow one to have a good body and a good mind, but if one wishes to truly accelerate on the path, it's necessary to engage in that great vehicle pathway. So the great vehicle pathway we find actually implicitly within the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge, where that mantra states Teata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangati Bodhi Soha. This is actually implicitly referring to the 5 paths. The Teata Om Gate, the first is referring to the path of accumulation. The second gate referring to the path of preparation. Paragate referring to the path of seeing. Parasamgate referring to the path of meditation. And Bodhisoha referring to the path of no more learning. So this is referring to those 5 Mahayana paths: the path of accumulation, the path of preparation, the path of seeing, the path of meditation, and the path of no more learning. So what the text here is speaking of is bringing about this body and mind that are fully qualified in the great vehicle. Not referring to the lesser vehicle traditions of hearer, solitary realizer, referring to those bodhisattvas, those bodhisattva pathways. Dixon.
Lari dune gojibu chung khadu do terendo la chu rula chenyi sang yi ten manye patu sajue muyungi ti matame julalos wo te lari dune go terendo wote la chu rula chenyi sang yi ten smogi jibu tsujingi ten zamji da tu res na chen rube ten chenyi sangwa tu ma tu nye so res na chen rube ane na chen tak la chu marbe teba chibi la chu ro Rajag Lanji, Chibichung Chung Marva, Lanchu Drula, Seni Sai Ten, Mane Patu Saju Moyu, Ti Masam Julalos. What the Lanchu Drula Seni Sai Ten, what the Zentele, Nami Juji, Nami Jibaji, Nami Juji, what the Dente Tubola, or the Kasore, the Tuzuna, and the Naja Ten Seni Sawade. Tobres, what the ladies about
Lamrim didn't, Kabir.
Lari did Jim Chung Hatu Chung. Lanchu Jula, Seni Sai, Mane Patu Sachu Moy, Ti Masame Julalo, Guzun Didun Jame Baba and there, have a lady on Jude Toji Sound Tempage,
So we find this point being made in Lama Tsongkhapa's shorter Lamrim called the Abbreviated Stages of the Path, or the Lamrim Duden, where he states the fullest strides of progress in actualizing the supreme paths will not come about unless you have obtained a working basis of an ideal human body that is complete with all the 8 ripened favorable qualities. Therefore, you must train in the causal virtuous actions that will preclude your attainment of such a form from being incomplete. Furthermore, as it is extremely essential to cleanse away the stains of black karmic debts and downfalls from broken vows, tarnishing the three gateways of your body, speech, and mind, and especially to remove your karmic obstacles which would prevent such a rebirth, you should cherish continually, devoting yourself to applying the complete set of four opponent powers. I, the yogi, have practiced just that. If you would also seek liberation, please cultivate yourself in the same way. So here in Lama Tsongkhapa's text, we find this basis that has these 8 favorable qualities. So then when we look at the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, we find the 8 fruitions, the 8 effects of the fruitions, and then the 8 causes of the fruitions, and so forth. So Lama Tsongkhapa in the smaller Lamrim, where he's talking of the 8 ripened favorable qualities, is referring to those fruitions that we'll look at in the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment.
What that the Machibala Song, the La Song, Namiji and Namiji Jebo, Namiji Jews, that Namiji and J, Namiji Jebo J, Namiji Juji,
Lesser.
What was the ancient.
So in the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, we find there are 8 the attributes of the fruition. So there are 8. We find the effects of the fruitions, there are 8. And then we find causes of the fruitions, there are 8. So Lama Tsongkhapa explains it in that way.
That Namiji, they jig on Tom of the Redua. Namiji, they jig on Tom of the Redua. Sepenson Subas, Sepenson Subas, what Tom of Remedy, Sepenson Subas. Sepenson Subas and also Masarim, but I'm Soton says you, Masarim, Soton says you. Sepenson Subate, Lege, Copen, May Page, Lege, Naju Payana, Naju Peba Najin, Naju Debaina, said the person Subares.
Not you.
Lungaju.
50
years. 50 years, Lady the Payana.
Lesser.
Leg Peba Naju de Tubaina. Sepenson Suba. Leg Naju Pebala, to make it your Luchun on the Shenegate. Juchin, Nishu Sonjun the Shenegate, Pansuba member. Sepenson Subas, Leg Peba Naji, Tata Degate, Sepenson Subas.
So here, consummate lifespan is referring to a certainty of a long lifespan. Sometimes we have a short life, sometimes a long life. But if you are definitely will live to be 50 years old, for instance, then this is, if there's a certainty you'll live to be 50, then this is like a consummate lifespan. If there's this uncertainty in your life force where you could die at the age of 20 or 21 or younger, then this isn't a consummate lifespan. So this is referring to a projecting karma that has this, this certainty or this. Then the Rinpoche. Ngay tsampa de sabudu.
Sepenson Suba, Tamadro, Sepenson Suba, May Serimbo, Setodon Saturova, library.
Long life.
Or long life. But Sepenson Suba, Lege, and Pemba Naji, they took in Sejuro, Sepenson Subas, Roja Pembaina, Jade took into Sepenson Subas.
So if somebody was definitely going to live to be 100, then they would have this consummate lifespan. So if there was certain to live to 100. So this is what is meant by that.
That the Nyando Rusana, what the Namek Juji, the Undakatudua, Namek Juji, and the Jatan Guchu, Guchik Jigidundu, Nami Juji less, what Tanatama to say, Gina.
So on page 243, we find it. There are 8 fruitions, and then they list the 8. Indicate J logo.
What the Nami Juji Nami Juji non Damata Marva, Sijin, Matsawata, Masi, Sambatan Bas, Jia, Sosa Chuba Ledantan, the Sula, Sugi Pentajin, Suja Sawa Ledube, Serenwan Tobanjuros, Serenwan Tobanjuro, Nebin Gurushim Hemba, Pen Rod Jimbatan, Sujapon, Isuji, Swamel Neme, Shesonsos, Jutombateremde, what near Dijana.
The Rinpoche, the Charon Kabiare, Becha.
The Beja Dendo, Guchu, Jadon, Guchu, Jigit and Jadon Guchu, Paisian Jadon Guchu, Jigit le, Namiji Jujeles, Namiji Jujeles, as Jandu.
Jujele.
Jele was a Tombater.
So now we go to page 244 in the English, where we have causes of fruitions. So this is what is actually going to cause. So Rinpoche's moving on to over to this page now. So Namenji Jujele. So the causes of the fruitions. There are 8 causes of the fruitions. The cause of consummate lifespan is not harming living beings and the application of a non-violent attitude. Further, it is said, then Lung Chan Lung.
Nami Jujele, Tomane. Sijela Masawata, Masi Samba Tempa, Taba, Nurse Bomba, Nurse Bomba.
Less so.
Nurse Bomba, Bomba Samba Tempa. What the Nami Jutamba de Marva?
So here, this cause of consummate lifespan is not harming living beings. So this first cause is referring to not hurting any kind of living being, not harming any being. This is the first cause of these fruitions that.
Tajia Tendma Sosa Chuba Le Dantan, Tejisu Pen Tajin, Suja Sawa Le Dupe, Serenwan Tobanjurosa. Sepensun Subi Jut Shosana, Sepensun Suba. Damadele Sepensun Suba Tamboyo Marbe, Yede Jigana, Sepensun Suba Tamboro. Sepensun Subi Jut Shosana, Suja and Suja Masawa Masi Samba Temba. The Jonsona. What the Sepensun Subjuris, Joe. Sepensun Subjure.
Shosana?
Just the Sejela Masawa, the Masi Samba Tembaje, and then Susa Chuba Le Dantans, Seje Suya to Sungalo, and so much was Lushavina, and shut down to Sungasuru, Masawaji Lushavina, Susa Chuba Le Damarba,
Lessa.
Pajutan. Madagajiba Marveda.
Lessa.
What number you know the Seri Jures. The Jinsu Pentabe, Sul Nehayovina, and the Co Nehamabes Pentavina, Suja Sawale, Suja Sawabombaina, Sawale Dubaina, the Rebel Syrian what doing with this, Syrian, Supposing what doing with this. You didn't jig on top of the Marva.
You know the Paju then that sana then they donagare that so chat say what
Suja Swale do Suja Swapoya, Nurse Poya the Marva. Suja Nurse Poya Botan Yada, what to never much by the Pombaina. Swale do base.
The Soji Pendashing?
So
Pendash.
Pendas help.
The Sage.
Sije could swear Yagaduna and the cool Hameba Rubuja.
Lasso, there.
Pentas, Pentavina, Selim Jungures.
Lasso. So then. So if one were to state, posit the causes of a consummate lifespan. Consummate lifespan is the first among the 8 fruitions. So when we look at the fruitions, they're in order, there's 8. Consummate lifespan is the first. So what is the cause of consummate lifespan? So here we find the cause of consummate lifespan is adopting an attitude that you don't harm any living being whatsoever. And then you adopt a nonviolent attitude in general. So you have first this attitude and you abstain from harming living beings, and then we find that there are other causes that are presented here as well. It says then by rescuing those approaching a place where they will be killed. So, for instance, if you were to, there were animals that were going to go to a slaughterhouse, and you were able to free them from being slaughtered, then this would be the cause of a consummate lifespan. Or even if a human was going to be, and then you stop that, this would be the cause of a consummate lifespan. And then the next says, and likewise giving life to others. So I asked Rinpoche, that's what I was asking about, what that exactly means, giving life to others. And he said that if there is some sort of problem in someone's life or something going wrong in their life, you benefit them, you help them in some way. So that's what is meant by giving life to others. It's helping them with their lives, helping with some problem with their life itself. And we use this, so it's, the word, the same one that we'd say long life, it's that word for life. So if someone's having a problem in their life, we aid them. And this will be the cause of a consummate lifespan. And it says turning harm away from living beings, you will acquire a long lifespan. So these are the points that are made. Non-harm to living beings, developing a non-violent attitude, rescuing animals such as cows or anything, or even a human that would be slaughtered from being slaughtered, or helping someone with their life. These are the causes for a consummate lifespan. Diksun.
다 니바 카두 편소 소바 말 니바 카두 편소 소바 예대 지가나 니바데 담부처 편소 소바지 니바 카두 편소 소바로 카두 편소 소바네 지데 가자 카두 편소 소바네 이다 카두다 이 레베 조상신 엄보마 상와메베 따나 또 주신 거 봐고 어디 카두 편소 소바네 말이야 이다 카두 그 다간데 존제보도 어디 내니바들도 존제바데 이다 카두 네 비다보 던질래 카두 편소 소바라 그랬어.
So so that is the first. And then I'm just going to read through the rest of this. Through caring for the sick, through doctors giving medicine to the sick, and through not harming living beings with sticks, clumps of earth, and the like, you will be without illness. So that falls categorically under this first consummate lifespan. The next deals with consummate color, a wonderful color, the best color is... So the cause of such thing, this quality, is giving light, such as butter lamps and new clothing. Further, it is said, by relying on kindness and giving jewelry, you will have a good physical form. The result of being without jealousy is said to be good fortune.
다 가도 방송 수비 줘도 와대 주니 받으러 주니 받대 니 주니 받대래면도 니반에 마물라 수비 나와다 고사바진 바우스 마물라 수비 나와다 고사바진 바우 예야 초아멜라 템바다 제제바이 조선이스 차도 매비 제번에 교화장보로도 시스 어떻게 주니 받은 말배
Lesson.
그 존제보 제보유야 주도 가르스나 안 마음에 가서 바잘랜도 두서래면도 로기 첨부야도 속노로 존제비 주래도
So here it says the cause of a consummate color, cause of wonderful color, is giving light such as butter lamps and new clothing. So here when we say giving light, we can use those examples such as butter lamps, but we see all of these light offerings we have around the shrine room. This would be the cause for a beautiful color, one to have a beautiful color as well. So where it says, by relying on kindness and giving a good physical form, this is referring to having a very beautiful body, a very beautiful form, as a result of offering lights and so forth. So the tambo lo, dene the
mamula subi tawa dance terendoa chumupiado rendoa mamula subi tawa dance kuisaba jimba ta janira sujun dolu saba jimba tamba ina zunzebi yungosaro
So then it speaks of giving clothing, being generous, So being generous in some way, giving some new clothing to someone. So where it says butter lamps and new clothing, that's referring to giving someone, clothing someone.
So if
one offers these lights and one offers clothing, then in the future one will have a consummate color, a very good color. Troa mepa, contra mepa, chipa.
Troa mepa.
Contra mepa?
Contra mepa, contra bomba.
Okay.
Contra bomba ina.
La demba. Lessa.
Jejin ba izonis. Je. Ano nga so annual ta so this je to jiba ta wa ina. Chewa shema
Lessa. So then it says by relying on kindness. So here, kindness is referring to abandoning anger. So, so having the absence, the abandonment of anger. So that's what this kindness is referring to. Rinpoche went over the word troa mepa. So relying on the abandonment of anger. And then it says, and giving jewelry, you will have a good physical form. So if you engage in generosity with jewelry, earrings and bracelets, necklaces and so forth, and just give them, or generous with them, then this will be a cause of a beautiful body.
Chadu maybe the cause of what is chadu bombi, nevertheless, give us on board this, give us on board here, give us on board the Kiba Gamba Sajuro. In Ottawa, and the Kibas on board, she goes on with the Menroa. Chadu Bombaina, goes on board, she's
the Kalpa example.
Kiba in Marbe.
Ale.
Inchil Catino.
Gawa.
Kiwa Zang, also Kiba Tomo Kiba Nivas at the Kiwa Zombo. Shiva Zombi Shiroti. Kiba Zombo, Kiba Gambas Logrota.
Okay.
Chadu moment with the Kiba Zombo is
Less so.
She knows she is.
Kelpa Zampo Show Sana? Sanjay.
Sanjay Pepe Kiba.
Okay, two channel. I just gave the Sabolaku. Okay, so then it says the result of being without jealousy is said to be good fortune. So here, good fortune is referring to a fortunate eon. So when we look at a time when one could exist or abide, a fortunate eon is one where a Buddha has come. So when one abandons jealousy, one will be able to have the result of being in a fortunate eon, a fortunate time. So it is said to be good fortune. It really is referring to a specific type of fortune. That's the fortune of abiding in the time that is considered a fortunate eon. And if we look at the presentation of eons and so forth, there are fortunate eons, and then there are dark eons where is nothing. There's no fortune. So just as a note, the fortune is that the Buddha has arrived, that the teachings are in the world, and so forth. So if one abandons jealousy, then one will be able to live in that time.
Ta somba te marbe somba roa somba te ne ribhasun sobas somba ribhasun soba ne jiten be question trabi ritombo nanso jeba osa ribhasun soba yende somba te roa ribhasun soba ne jiten be question trabi ribhasun soba jeba de ribhasun soba sagres Sanjine basu the read shiraya pres could jabi re and transit read some there a matching what they read the abres what the Duratans read and the Chivatala read Masu Subalogres.
The Rinpoche, the Jikten, the Lamrim Chenmo kabiyare. Nga the Sumba, nga je.
Are Chenmo that the reperson soba odero somba.
Okay, so when
Kadu person soba shogodere. Reperson soba den jiden be korshin trabi ritombo nansu chewa osa. Jiden be korshin jiden ba soge wode te abashira okite Tora dans des régions hautes, tenir résus cheva de là,
so when we look at the third, we have, and actually I'm going to read the second as well, because I believe Rinpoche went back to it and read it from this in one of the instructions. So consummate color is having an excellent body by way of its good color and shape, being pleasant to look at because you do not have incomplete sensory faculties, and being beautiful due to being well proportioned. So that's on a previous page, and that is the explanation of number 2. Number 3, consummate lineage is having been born with good lineage that is esteemed and famed in the world. So here, this is referring to, if we look at the previous times, the caste system and the lineages, being born into a king's lineage or Brahmin lineage. This is what it's referring to, having good lineage, a high lineage of some sort. So this is number 3. Sumba.
Sumba Tandere doa, Repensun Suba, Tawanshu Pensun Suba.
Naja.
Wanshu Pensun Suba.
Jepa.
Tanda
the Jew Lagua, the Naja. Jone Lama La Sopa.
Repensun Suba, the Jitembe, Niagu Tabi Rena to Cheba was.
Near the last one.
Taju the Losarva.
Yene Natsu the Jew Lama son.
The Jud what the Marva Jud the what the
Najel Pomba.
Najel Doa Najepones, Najepone Lama La Subala, Najepone, Suzilama, the Pamala Subatazul, Shatse, Tenejebaina, Shatse, Jela Tender Cuba, Jela Tender Cuba, Cubashebaina, what the
So the cause of consummate lineage is first overcoming pride, so abandoning pride, and then making obeisance and so forth to gurus, so making prostrations to teachers, paying homage to teachers and the like, and respecting others as if you were their servant. So this is the cause of having a good lineage. So that's number 3. And then number 4 is consummate power.
Jiba. Ta jiba de what the jiba de Marba. Jiba de ne what Onju Ponsuba Marba.
Lessa.
Jiba Onju Ponsubarava. Jiba Onsu Subata rich and rich.
Longsu Chenmo.
Rich Jukarasana, Onju Ponsuba rich and rich.
Lessa.
Monsieur Chewatan, Niela Subi, Zanjin Chewatan, Susi. Pinjala Subato, then Zachi, Sani Chewatan,
Lessa,
Copecho, and the Suzuku Roman of the Moya again.
Lessa.
Or Tendele, the Secretary, Subas.
So number 4 is consummate power. So this is referring to being rich. So here it says being wealthy. So consummate power is great resources, an abundance of close associates such as relatives and many helpers. So here you have this abundance of relatives, but you have this very, very close connection with them. So you're very, very have a very strong connection, and everybody is willing to be very helpful to you as a result of this.
Tajeba Onju Ponsu Jut Garesana, Onju Ponsu Jut de Jibanes, Segula Suba, Huala, Tada Jimbatans, said no Gusangel Gujibataya, Se Jimbatan, Kala Jimbatan, Tulu Jimbatan, Jimbatan, and Nal Tulu, Kala Gus, Malaba Inaya, Maloya, Pandu Basa.
Lessa.
Hongamadu, Nal Gus, Longamadunaya, and to Sul Pandu, Rubijea.
Lessa.
Pandu Batanza. Dungawata Dunganji, Xin Yuji, Mebala, Pajimba Wusa. Dunga Sabrin Manza. Dungawata, Yuandeji Xin, Yuji Mebalas, Sabrin, and the Sabrin being to the and the Jimbatan Rubuji Gures.
Lessa.
And then Yuandeji Sagala, and the Yuji Mabatan Yabaina, to Rubuji Baina, and what did everything was.
Lessa.
Doing Hawatan, Yuandeji Xin Yuji Mabala, Parajin Bogusa.
Then the Inchike, the Khensur, the Yunten Yure in a Nguyo Mare, Chala you can Jubioro.
Okay. Sagala,
Lessa.
What the Sujimatan was.
Lessa. So then we move on to what the cause of consummate power is. So it is giving food, so making offerings of food and drinks and so forth, clothing and so forth to those who request them, even when they are not requested. So you give away these things if someone asks for them, but you also give away these things even if they are not asked for. If they don't ask you for them, you still engage in this giving. And then it says, giving such assistance and giving to those who suffer, and to recipients who have good qualities but no possessions. So here, giving things to people who are suffering, or to scholars, for instance, who don't have any scholars. Who don't have any things, don't have really any possessions, but they have these excellent qualities because they're scholars, but they don't have their needs met. So you engage in generosity to them, and as a result, you will have consummate power. Number 5 is trustworthy words.
Jenda Ganga go to Kul Gabachine, Kul Karishi, now the Demaris, Samanzingaris, what the Nabat Marbe.
Lessa.
Tea Jud the Marbe, Naba.
Lessa.
Kebam Hawa dansa, Kisha Kebishin, Kebam Hawa dan, Tun Shubatan, Tun Tumbe, Sejena Dujin, Hibashibos, Tum Hawa, Tun Tumbas. Raju Meji Pashin to the Jenji Meji doing objet, Dujet is Redmade, Keba Mawas, Kija Kebashi, Mahuba, Kija Kebashi, and then Tun Shubat and Tun Tumbas, and the Jendal what the Churut and the Jaguars, and the Suju Mari, what in the law, and the Suju at the Yalanche Waters, Tun Shubat and Tun Tumbas, and the Jabaina, what the Chijumbi Jut what there is that.
Parshin Drew Garsina. Parshin Drew Garshin.
Raju Meji Pashi to the Jeju Meji do you over so much? Pashi to 6 proportion.
Lessa.
Raju Meji is Raju Meji Ragi Sanju Zang Sanju Abrea Jut Pashi to the rest. Yang Ju and the Abrea Jut Dujit is Duaji. Because I came about Moata, Tunshuba, Tuntumba. And the general Kisha Cambushi, and the general Majis at the Suzuka Majibache, and Tunshuba, Tuntuba, Jebaina, what Situm, but what the
Okay. Trustworthy words are words that living beings will accept because you are suitable to be trusted and not delude others physically or vocally, and are an authoritative witness in all disputes. So here, if someone, for instance, was a practitioner of these the 6 perfections and abandoned for the 4 root non-virtues and so forth, someone like that, could become trusted by others. Others would know that when they speak something, that it is true, for sure, and that there is weight behind what they are saying. So that's where there's authority part comes in. So that not only everything that you say, so this trustworthy words is not only everything you say, everyone believes and trusts, because you don't say anything that is wrong, but also you're able to be an authoritative witness in disputes. So you can tell, you can be someone who can intervene and settle something because you are looked up to as an authority and as someone who knows better. So this is what the meaning of that is, like someone who really knows better, someone who can be trusted, someone who is always truthful, someone whose words are always true. So this is what is meant by trustworthy words.
That Juba Deva Juba. Juba then
Julago.
Judla.
The
What is the Nagmago?
Okay. So the cause of trustworthy words is habituation to giving up the four vocal non-virtues. So you gain these from abandoning the four non-virtues of the speech. Rinpoche, the Chutsu Jaitan. We're going to take a short break, and we will be back. 6. Drupa.
Drupa the oncho Chabad Marbe.
Less so.
Chaba oncho Chabanesa, Jimbala Pawa, Sambala Subi, then the Temba Lesa, Jimbatan la Pau, and Pawa, and Sambala Subi, then the Temba Le, Chabatan, Jimbatan Pau is also, and Kokida Shuvira, Champi Taba Shuju Drubiges. Jimban du Rugun Genondo, Jimban du Rugun Gen, sending to Vachu, Sonatu, Majun Hedu Jebi Jessu, Champi Taba Shuju Drubiges. Jimbatan the Kedachi, what the Jimba Laba, Jimba Tama is was not called Telatin Kedachi, what the Rendua?
Long carne?
No, no, they
okay. So now we have so renown as great power is to be honored by great multitude of beings because of your fame and wide acclaim due to your confident generosity and possession of good qualities such as perseverance. So you become very famous because of your level of generosity that you engage in. And we find a similar point that's made in the Lamrim Duden that says generosity is the wish-granting gem by which you can fulfill the hopes of sentient beings. It is the best weapon for cutting the knot of greed or miserliness. It is the altruistic conduct which enhances your self-confidence and undaunted courage to help everyone towards enlightenment. It is the basis for your good reputation to be proclaimed in the 10 directions. Knowing this, the wise have devoted themselves to the excellent path of completely giving away their body, possessions, and merit. I, the yogi, have practiced just that. If you would also seek liberation, please cultivate yourself in the same way. So here we find in the Lamrim Duden this same idea that by engaging in generosity, you become famous. You have this great reputation in all the 10 directions, it says in the Lamrim Duden.
What the Jew. What the Juba the Rendua. Shimala, Joshima. This life, Nesla. Joa Shamarala, you then have to do Paloma with his Paloma.
Less so.
Joa Shamal and the Nalu then have to do Paloma Tabaina and Joa Shamal what they were.
Less so.
They is and the Kunju on the Choba Danza, Kunju Sanji Kunju Chukunju, the new Kunju Choba Miabures, then the Pamatan Yaranta, the Kenlu Lama Choba Shibo, Suzu Pamatan, and then Pamadan, Kenlu Marve, Nerasan, Neturanjero, Neturanjezul Chubambu, Campbell Chubambu, Chubambu Chubambu, Lama Chubambu, and then what they want your Kasa, want your Tabadian waters, Marve.
So the cause of renown as a great power is making aspirational prayers to acquire various good qualities in the future, so in the future lives. And then it says making offerings to the three jewels, so making offerings to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, making offerings to one's parents, making offerings to the Shravakas, which are the hearers, making offerings to the Prachika Buddhas, which are solitary realizers, making offerings to abbots, making offerings to great masters and teachers. So this is what causes one to have great power.
Ta Dumba Rawa, Dumba Jeba ne pay over the Demba, that Jeba the pay over the Dembas, pay over the Demba, what Jeba Demba, pay over the Demba Jeba J. Do the Demba ne, when you lay to J'ai never changed name about Cindy Chenrezig was. Oh, yeah, that's the name what the Dumba the good Marva.
Dumba the me.
Dumba the good Dumba ne?
Boo.
What is it? On the Pojia, the Jude shows na GB della Gawa dance, CB della Gawa dance. Pemejo Mobola, Magazines, Niemezo Tawadan, Pemeji Lu, Debana, Debadan, Payombo Jabale, Tawash was.
So
what the Jeba, what the Judy,
Dumber.
What the Jeba Judy.
Okay, so number 7 is being a male. Is to have a male organ. So then the cause of this is, the cause of being a male, I'm just reading this, is delight in the attributes of a male, lack of delight in female things and seeing their disadvantages, stopping the yearnings of those who want to be reborn in women's bodies, and rescuing those whose male organs will be cut off. Moving on to 8.
Jeba de what told them about in Serba. Told them about the Huji Leji, Jeji Neba Chonshin, Name about Cindy Generation, Truacho, what the Jeba Timber. The Jude shows under the daughter. Jeba
Shinji Dendo.
Jebute,
Shinji Denmi.
Jeji Menubis, Jeji Lekat Matuba to so, and the Susu Jeba in our day. Jeba Dungo Marta Jeba. Jeje de Manuba, Rangi, Sheba dance, Jenda Legache Matuba, what in the Rangi Jebaina, Jenda Godu Matuba, Rangutuba, Jenda Legache Matuba, Rangutuba, Dina, Jeba Tocho Dungo. Rana Dombi Nebala Trojeba, Zawadan, Tuanta was Jeba Jutu.
Lesser. So number 8 is having strength. So is by the power of previous karma, naturally experiencing little injury, no illness, and great enthusiasm arising from life's experiences. So then this strength is caused by accomplishing what cannot at all be done by others, assisting in what can be done with your collaboration, and giving food and drink. So doing what no one else can do, or helping someone do what they can't do, or giving them some sort of assistance and being generous with food and drinks. So this is the cause of having strength, or the word power could be used. So yeah, because it's do Chenmo, so power, strength, same.
So these are
8 qualities or fruitions that are according to the Parshin.
Tantra. Tantra was a pemel, gemel, wamil, habayo, wamil, juju, mare, juju, and the Tatum Buddhist, or Tendersumayoro. There's a table juju and Tatum Sumudo. There's a pay over the Abbot.
So here we find these points that are made about male and so forth. But in the tantric tradition, the higher teachings, we find that it's breaking a root vow if you have any kind of disparage women in any way. So we find that there's a little bit of a different idea than what's presented here. This presentation is given in this, according to this particular tradition of the 8 fruitions, but in the tantric tradition we would find different points that are made, which would seem, I hate to use the word different again, but it's used twice. Different points that are made that are different than what is presented here.
Nami juji ta nami rebuji jadarwa nami rebuji na tamu de lota tagite nami yede shugudel rebure lota jadon jechuro jechu tamatini badal duwa nami chin rebula jeles nami rebuji marwa nami chin rebuji jeles Chad Jeshu Kazira, Jeju Chagure.
190?
Name de Jeju Jutre.
Namin Jijepo. La Jele? Namin Jijepo?
What the incident would
Okay. So now we'll go to the effects of the fruitions. So we've gone over the fruitions themselves and the causes of the fruitions. Now we'll go over the effects of the fruitions. So we're going to be on page 243 in the English now.
Jigna Damadredua, Randa Genji Tunle, Zane, Yurebo, Goma Busubo.
That's right.
The Chu Namin Deba Ai, Namin Deba Tamuro. Ti Jude, that Jujigna Damade, Sijit Swale Duba the Marbe, Sijil Swabomate, Sijil Nusu Bombade, and Randa Gen Debe, Goma Busubi Jo Ai. What the Jawood. Juji na tamut shosana sucha chwale do basa ne kasa sejel maswa da masi samba temba ta yen sucha chubale da teji su ki phen da shin sucha chwale do be chrewan to ba chre ju tamarba what the chuje ta name je ba tamut ge jo ai
Ian.
Namin Debut Damati Juina Randa Genji Tunle, Tane, Yunebuga Musubati Joy.
Ian.
Randa Genji Tunle Zambi, Goma Musubat Chuj, Nami Jabai.
Ian.
Yero. Nami Imbatas.
Mayan.
Nami Jabi Imbasir.
Chapamajan.
Nami the Nami Debutashiro.
Namin Jepo.
Namin Debutashiro. Nami
Jepo.
Nami Debut.
Oh, yeah. Judan Jepo.
Randa Genji Tunle Zambi, Yunebu Gawasuba Chuj, Nami Jabi Imbata. Nami Jabi Jigna, Tamati Imbasir.
Lessa.
Nami Jabi Imbatan Duro. Then not the choose Lomate Imbata. Lomate.
Lessa.
Imbata Nami Imbasir. Nami Jabi Imbasir.
Namin Yena Lumatane Chop.
Nami Lontomate, Siji Juno, Tension, Nami in the Lomate,
Are they? Lessa. So there's a very complex point that I'm going to try to present right now. So we have so it says there are 8 effects of the fruitions. The effect of consummate lifespan is that you accumulate much virtuous karma for a long time in terms of working for the welfare of both yourself and other. So how does one get a consummate lifespan? So is a consummate lifespan among the 8 attributes? Yes, it is the first of among the 8 attributes. So how does one get a consummate lifespan? One gets it by not harming living beings in application of a non-violent attitude, by rescuing those approached by where to be killed and giving life to others, turning harm away from living beings, you will acquire a long lifespan. So is this the cause of the consummate lifespan? Yes. So is the effect of a consummate lifespan a fruition itself? And if it is a fruition, then according to the Abhidharma, it is necessarily that which is not presented in Scripture. And if it is necessarily not which is presented in Scripture, then it's not virtuous. Because if you look at the 3 categories, the translators note, virtue, non-virtue, and that which is not presented in Scripture, you don't find common locus between any among the 3. They're all mutually exclusive. So, back to, that was translators note, those 3 are all mutually exclusive. So, we ask this question then, it allows you, is this result virtue? Because it allows you to, for a long time, engage in good deeds. So the depo namen yin mayan, lumaten yin mayan, gewa yin mayan. Nika yimba lumaten na gewa nika yimba musho. Nika yimba yomar gewa yin. Lesso. So we would have doubts. So Rinpoche just said exactly what my translator's note was, is that virtue, non-virtue, and not presented in Scripture are all mutually exclusive. So if you say that this is a fruition, and then if it's a fruition, then it is not presented in Scripture according to the Abhidharma. So then how can it be virtue? How can this fruition be virtue if it's not presented in Scripture? So then you say, then is there a common locus between that which is not presented in Scripture and virtue? And you have to say no, because those 2 subjects are certainly mutually exclusive. So this is left here for scholars to look at. So we can just have a small doubt in our mind about what it is or isn't. But if we look at it the point that's stated here, the effect of consummate lifespan is that you accumulate much virtuous karma for a long time in terms of working for the welfare of both yourself and others. So here it's saying you accumulate much virtuous karma. So that's what you're doing here. This result is you're accumulating virtue. So is this virtuous? It can't be virtuous if it's a fruition, because a fruition is necessarily not presented in Scripture categorically. So that is where we're leaving that. So those Lamrim scholars write of this. Lesso.
Loma Tenzin, Deva Ayu.
Less so. So then one would read this. If you were looking at this as a scholar, you would read this and you would say, the effect of a consummate lifespan is that you accumulate much virtuous karma for a long time in terms of working for the welfare of both yourself and others. So is this an effect of a fruition? So, and then if you state that this is an effect of a fruition, if the answer is yes, then you would say, then is it that which is not presented in Scripture? You would say yes, because if it's a fruition, effect of a fruition, then it is necessarily that which isn't presented in Scripture. But then you read this and say, so accumulating virtue for a long time is not virtuous then? Because it can't be, because we know it's a fruition, which is necessarily not presented in Scripture. And those two categories have no common locus between the two because they're mutually exclusive. So this is how you would read this. You would see fruition and you would see virtue, and it doesn't. There's not a compatibility because of the way that things are categorized. If you look at it as a scholar, so. That when Rinpoche is doing this, as a note, when there is debate in the monastery, someone presents questions and claps, but the teacher usually, when teaching, snaps the finger, and that represents the clap of the debate. So when a question is presented and this is done, that's just representing the clap, and that means that there's been a question posed. So when Rinpoche is doing this, that's what he's doing. He's posing a question, and then he's actually answering them, so I can translate it.
Mama la subin hawa dang kwe saba jimba. Jen yang chua me la tenba dang jen jimba yi zozon nis wote name ju jimba de wote ju marba. Ta zon zebi jute ti ju name tonga zang ji duja ganes tonga zang ji duja ganen du la sa. Ti ci nye ba kwe kecha xie da anju nye ne Gabajin nye waters, Shaw Samba was. That the Loma things and a vision to you, Madua. The Loma things and these are Marba.
Then they listen to you. Chishena.
Yeah. Tonga Sanji Duja Gane, Tonga Sanji Duja Gane, and the Tonga Sanji Duja Gane, and the Kulundunas, do Lasa. These senior was. And the queer Kisha the annual year.
Lesser.
What the name de but
so the second.
Tea Jude shows in the Marbe. Mamma so what is it? What the Lazar?
Okay, so the number 2 is the effect of consummate color. So what happens if you have this attribute? You have this consummate color. Is that merely through seeing you, disciples are pleased and gather around you. They then listen to your words and want to carry out your instructions. So how do you get this consummate color? You get it by giving away lights, by butter lamps and so forth, giving away clothing, by relying on kindness. And giving jewelry, you will have a good physical form. The result of being without jealousy is said to be good fortune. So we had that previously. So the cause of having this consummate color are those things just stated, and the result of it is that so it says they then listen to your words and want to carry out your instructions. So everything that you say, the people are really listening and then actually doing what you're advising them to do. So this is the result. And then Rinpoche said, so there isn't any problem with this second one being that which is not presented in Scripture. So he doesn't see an issue with it being categorized in that way.
Das name de sombandere do goa le mandawa druba was goa le mandawa druba name de sombandere goa le mandawa ta kogi la shabate and tagana konogi
Ngama chipa.
druba tres rwa what sombat mara sombat nes
Rinpoche, then
go
Nipa Chipa Yomare? Dunda, Chike Dunda. The Anjur Nye, then Khonsur
anjul nyeba de shawa sembas
Shao Semba.
shawa semba ku
Then ni Samba
ku shia
dan
de ka nyen gundu samba da sombat go le mandawa ta churun de che de majis loba ina loba na jin ne kill nyale jeba ina go le mandawa ro
Shawa Semba, the cheap drop will do it.
tez mandawa do
Okay. Okay.
ta ku logi na ku nyen gi samba tamot ro ta
Lesso.
ta ku lo suna ku loba na jin go le mandawa loba na jin ku nyale je suna go le mandawa ro
Lesso.
go le mandawa ti ju de na me ju de mar be ta nga je ju ne lama la su ba la sha sha wa la su ba ta je la ten de ku ba je ba us wo de ti ju de mar be o ku dul te la wo
So the effect of consummate lineage is that people carry out your instructions without disregard. So no matter what you tell them to do, they do it. So I was asking Rinpoche, it seems similar to the last they carrying out. And he said it's slightly different because here you have listening to words and then a desire to carry out instructions. And in this second one, you have carrying them out without disregard. So it's slightly different, what is presented in number 3 and 2. And then what is the cause of this consummate lineage which allows you to allows you to advise people and they follow your instructions without disregard? It is first overcoming pride and then making obeisance or paying homage and so forth to gurus and the like, and respecting others as if you were their servant.
ta na me de je ba de do je ba ne jimbe senje na du de pin ba she ba wo sa jimbe senje na du de pin ba she ba de na me de je ba tro na me de je ba je jimbe se jimba tan ne senje na du de jimba tan so na ko jimba tan he de ga ba je ro da du de senje na pin ba she ba ku sen ju de ne ya ba chan ro da shin ru nyang lai jin na rang ge ju de ya ba chang ro min ro jimba tan ba yin na yin ge ju de bi da ba chan ro min ro pin ba she ba wo sa yin be sen jin na du de pin ba she ba de na me ji de ba je ba de do wo de le to ba do yin be sen jin na
Ge wa ma yin.
yin be sen jin na du de pin ba she ba chu ji ge wa yi
Nutra.
Ante cioè nami mai bat, nami devo mai bat. Gwa invece tu vado tele.
Jimba Gewa Mayan. Okay.
Jimbe senje na du de member se varo.
Then the Mimba Jepa, the Mimba Jepa don't
Member se varo ta de nga su podro kasa mengo.
Lesser.
Mengo se tro de mi la ma.
Lesser.
And sana ngame chaza du
Mimba. Okay.
What is man?
Then the
senje ju mi so du le ku jimba tang yin na ku senju de ga bu cha no mar ba. Ga bu cha ne ku senju de abu cha no ro da. Member so de mar ba. Ku ju mi jas. Ku sen chul ga bu chu mo yin na. Ju mi ba so mar ba ju mi ba.
Okay, so number 4, the effect of consummate power is that through giving, you gather living beings and then mature them. So here, this is through the act of generosity. If we look at the 6 perfections, the first being generosity, by engaging in that, you gather living beings and then mature them. So I asked Rinpoche, what does this mature them? The word ripen is what the literal translation, mimbar, means to ripen. And I asked what that means, and he said that when you give to another person, it makes their mind almost content. So this word ripening of their mind, is referring to this kind of result that comes from the generosity. So when you give something generous to someone, it in some way, Rinpoche said, if a mango is not ready, it's very hard and it's not sweet inside. But as soon as it's ripe, it's very sweet inside and it's ready. So by engaging in generosity, you then help make living beings then. Their minds ripen and almost ready, or maybe ready is another way you could say it, or just ripe. So then, Chen, the Jew Lobsang.
Yuan Xin Yuji Mabala Jimbo was a doing out to Jimatangure and the Kiba and the Jubatu Jimatangure. That Name Ju Jibatamare.
Lesser.
Name Ju Jibate, Jimmy Sajan do Meba Jibati, Jumare.
Lesser.
What love.
So the result of consummate power is that through giving you gather living beings and then mature them and ripen them. So the cause of that is giving food, clothing, and so forth to those who request it, even when they are not requested, giving such assistance and giving to those who suffer, and to recipients who have good qualities but no possessions. So here, giving things to someone who is suffering, or for instance, to a scholar who has great qualities but has no possessions. So then what I didn't translate from before. So number 4 here is problematic. So we have to ask this question then. Is that through giving you gather, through generosity you gather living beings and then mature them. So this generosity is not virtue. So this effect is not a fruition. So then we have a problem there again. Because if it is a fruition, it is that which is not presented in Scripture. But here we have generosity. So generosity, we would normally say, is virtue. So then this number 4, when we look at it from those terms, becomes something we have to doubt or question as well. Because if it's a fruition, again, it has to be not presented in Scripture. And then you would say the subject, being generous and gathering living beings and maturing them, is not virtue. So that's how you would present the subject. This is not that. That's the way Rinpoche is presenting all of his points.
That name is Jibat Losasma.
Jibalaza.
Oh, yeah. That Nabandi, but name is Jabangabate, Heba Mawata, Tunshiba, Tunbe, Sijena, Duji, Heba Shiba, that name is Jabangabate and Dua, Heba Mawatas. Heba Mawa Tunshiba Tunwas, or the Sajan Heba Shiba, Namin Jabangabat Marba, Namin Jabangaba, what they do what water. Heba Mawa, Tunshiba Tunwas, Tunbe, Sajan and Dujim Heba Shiba, the Namin Jabo Nabat Marba. What the Lama Ibatas no dilla to what water. Heba Hawan, Tunshiba Tuntubas, General Kitchen Hembushi, Gendale, Churundamaji, the Gisela, Krugan Yalaje, Tunshiba, Tuntubas, Tunshiba's General Jabanade, Tatantumba. Susu Yalaje. Yen Majin the Gisad, San Najin, Susu Yalajebaina, Tuntumba Dendro. Tunshiba Tuntumbi, Sajana Duji Mebashivos, what Solomade Ayame to what.
So then this number 5, we have another question. The effect of trustworthy words is that through kind speech, purposeful behavior, and being one whose aims are the same as the disciples, you gather living beings and mature them. So here you have a very beautiful speech, and your behavior is for a reason, and you are engaging in that which you are instructing those to do. So you're actually engaging in those practices that you're telling the disciples to engage in, and so forth. So then this becomes a problem. How can this not be virtue? The kind speech that is then ripening others and so forth. So then number 5, we've run into that same question of is this not that which is not presented in Scripture? Sometimes they use the word neutral for that, so you'll see that virtue, non-virtue, neutral, but it's really not the way to translate it, because if you look at Lungma Ten, it means Lung is Scripture, Ma is not. So it's not in Scripture. So that's really the most literal way to translate that word. But you'll see it translated as neutral more often than not.
다 남의 주바들인도와 샤와 당제지 주시에스 코기 샤와 레카 가르제바 있는 주시바 있는 해 주시에 펜타바 이조서 오코가 가르제바시다이 네 어디 셰바조신스 네 가르제바인도 파원콜 네 셰바조신 녀도 고아녀 보고사 다코가 셰라 펜투부인 쿨러바데 감 많이 지금 말에 하냐 봐도 말봐 남의 주바들에도와
Lumatanians.
어디다 페질로마데 선데면도 주주바들에면데 주주바 샤말라라라 에덴하도 주 말라다 플란데지 건조선을 쳐봤다 파마다냐라다 캔로다 네 Lama
Okay, so we're finished with 5 trustworthy words, and the cause of 5 is habituation to giving up the 4 non-virtues of the speech. So number 6, the effect of renown as a great power is that because you have helped and assisted others in all activities, they repay your kindness and listen immediately to your instructions. You've been very helpful or benefited others in the past, and as a result, they have gratitude for your kindness. They wish to repay it. This is the result. And then when you give some sort of an instruction, they listen immediately to what you're saying. And this is caused by making aspirational prayers to acquire various good qualities in the future, making offerings to the 3 jewels, and making offerings to parents, Shravakas, Prachika Buddhas, abbots, masters, and gurus. So this number 6, then, we could say, doesn't seem to have a problem being that which is not presented in Scripture.
Yuan Taji Jin Tang, Dumba, Yuan Taji Jin Tang, Zu Shawa Zamba Taji Jin Tang, Tandu Julasa, Jen Kodu Majiba Tang, sentient Taji, sentient Taji the Lenji, Ruan, Ruban River, Longshaban, Amber Nebala. Tubatan, Geshe Lharampa was what the Dumbatimba, Dumba. Tangato Posator, the Jurendua.
Then the gem and the Sacha, Sawa, Drona, the Nutra, to do.
What the
Sildu.
What the
The Julago?
What the lawyer?
Nika. Okay. The effect of being a male is that you have the capacity for all good qualities, a capacity for all skilled actions by way of aspiration and endeavor, and a capacity for broad wisdom, the discrimination of objects of knowledge. Moreover, you will be unafraid in assemblies and will have no reversals or obstacles, whether accompanying all living beings, speaking to them, enjoying resources with them, or dwelling in isolation. So this idea of this safety, more of a safe. If you're somewhere completely alone, there's more safety there. So what is the cause of that? The cause of being a male is delight in the attributes of a male, lack of delight in female things, and seeing their disadvantages, stopping the yearnings of those who want to be reborn in women's bodies, and rescuing those whose male organs will be cut off.
다 제바란다 제제 칸라야 마주시 추슈철라 템베 수두비 싫어 또토네 뭐버셔버 뉴어트 저 제바제 어디 저 제바도 대주의 말다 어디래
근데 의시.
뭐시인사 뭐신주부터 그러다
오케이.
땡은데 어디 셰치부종나는 뭐시주부용 그러는 데서
Less so. The effect of strength is that because you are not disillusioned about either your own or others' welfare and are steady in your great enthusiasm for them, you will obtain the power of discernment and then quickly have the super knowledges. So here this is speaking of the various clairvoyances and so forth that you will obtain because one has accomplishing what cannot at all be done by others, assisting in what can be done with your collaboration, and giving food and drink. So this is how one gets this strength that then allows them to have this quality presented in the effect of number 8. So that's then Triwa Yure.
Okay, so yeah.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to end there, and then we have a question. And if anybody else has a question, we have a few minutes left, so that's what we're doing. So let Ted get the microphone out.
Well, maybe better if I wait until like a potentially private audience, or since
okay.
it's a bit more complex, I think.
Okay.
Just like yeah, thank you.
Okay. Le conseil de Mejenda Anjergu Mari Kong Shriwa.
알아.
Kong Chirang Kona Geje Shegu.
내가 거기서 그것이 뭐로.
He said you don't need to just speak alone to him. That's what he said.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like you don't need to do it
어,
alone.
나는 지서 말해. 야.
So maybe Rinpoche.
I mean, if that's okay, then I'll just speak.
Okay. Kong Shriwa Jagare.
어, 야.
Okay.
Thank you. So, I just have been going through very, very tumultuous times in terms of my experience in my spiritual path. Like, it's my psychic relationship to my world and manifest, and how it is that things are relating to me in everything that I see and everything that I'm relating to and everything I'm with. I've learned enough about my world to know how it is that I guess, I'm not sure, that life has become, and the world around me has become too close to, or too much in relationship with my mind, or like my I guess egoic mind, that basically the way that I experience the world and how people have come into my life is I understand it, or I relate to it almost like it's I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but what
Your ego is influencing all of the environment and the people around you that
Yes.
you're experiencing.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's mostly because of the ways that I'm not true to myself or true to the world. But that also
So the question?
but then also the question is this like I've also gone through very, very serious negative experiences, and in my understanding of my spiritual path, it's not just that I am in relationship with very negative experiences, but that in my relationship to creation and the level of development that I am or I'm with has caused a lot of negativity, or
so
that.
What's the question at this point? Just
I guess
because
the
Rinpoche's
question-
time is so valuable, I just need a question.
The question is, understand, and how can I bring to a grounding of my being what it is that I've been experiencing psychically, and that it's almost come to points where like I have a very deep and extreme profound relationship to my life. Like,
But we have a question. So what can you do about this,
what
right?
can I do about this?
Okay, these are a lot of statements, and we need a question. Rinpoche, the Tenzin, the Kongi Tsampa, the Sansan Kong.
Here's an example. Like, so I was okay. So here's a very good example. Okay, if it's appropriate, I remember being in, if not a past life, at least in some form, being with Rinpoche, but as a different being, and that I was with Rinpoche and I'd given him this book in a different form.
So how do you remember this? You have some sort of clairvoyance that allows you to see a previous life with Rinpoche?
Yes.
Where were you and who were you?
I was a man whose name was Bruce, and
Rinpoche was who?
Rinpoche was guru, or a guru, a person that I had experienced as a guru, and I had given him this book because I thought that it was.
So what does this have
cool
to do
thing.
with the question about your ego influencing the world around you, if you have a memory of a past life being with Rinpoche?
Because I'm too aware of how much all of the things that are around me relate to me, and the awareness that I have is not something I can necessarily escape, but that the actions that I take, I do try as much as I can to be present with in a positive way, in a way that is actually in relationship with everything on the planet.
Okay, I'm gonna cut you
so-
off here, and I'm going for it with Rinpoche, and we'll see
Okay.
what he can do, because it's 8:58 now. And I won't allow that to happen.
Okay.
Rinpoche, kongi chiwa de sansan kon de nutra yure. The ganyan sene kon sampa the dadzin di ju. The kon da the shira dagdu. Then sunsan the megenda kon samo mamo dana mare ganyan sene kon da samo dana du. Then kongi sampa the namwa kanga the dadzin gijepo. The kongi nawang hanga dazing jepo, and then kongi said the kongi tsampa the jewangama kon jewangama the tringadu, then cheran kon gegen jewangama, then the nge trua jason cheran ngushe yirbe, then kon seudu nga jewangami ngushe yire, then then kandre the dadzin pang. Ganginsena the dadzin, the dad, sanlo mamodana, the se dida, the se ngami dad, sanlo mamodana du, then the neutral yongudu. Then lapcha yuribe, dadzin pang.
Dadzin nga so nga se chin do so nga. Nga de pong nga su zong de tue ne do so tue ne. Ma tue ba ra me ba de da me ba lo de se. Nga pong nga la tue ro do yo. Ma tue ba ra me ba de da me ba lo de. Ma tue ba ra tro ba de da tro ba.
So this grasping at a self comes from a cause. So when we believe, we have this sense of self that then creates the environment and projects all of the various things around us. We are being guided by this false sense of what the self is. The self is merely labeled on a collection of 5 aggregates that come together and then are suitable to form as a basis of designation for the I, for the self, for the ego. So it's the lack of understanding that this ego or self is not independent, is not inherently existent. The misunderstanding is that the ego is in and of itself a singular thing that has some sort of solid existence that is separate from its parts, but that is a misapprehension. So when we believe that this is true, that this self exists singularly or exists from its own side, intrinsically existent, then we experience things in a diluted way. So what we need to do is to come to the realization that the self that the I, the ego, the Atman, is merely a designation on a collection of parts. But there is no I, ego, Atman, soul, separate I from that actual process of designation onto the 5 aggregates. So Rinpoche's advice is to meditate upon that. We have to do the dedication prayers. Rinpoche said the time is past. So we have to do the dedication prayers. So if we turn to the end of the book, concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Lobsang Drakpa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All-powerful Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Rinpoche, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, the spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Tuji Rinpoche Guti Shapi Deronam, Matsulam Chimo Kan Trionam.